Hi and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave and this is episode 1648 and today's date is August 26th, 2018, and the title of the episode is The Plan to Remove the Central Bank is in Motion. Now, before I get started, I just want to make an announcement. I uploaded a new interview with Bix Weir. It is on the X22 Report Spotlight YouTube channel. So all you need to do is go over to YouTube, type in X22 Report Spotlight. It'll bring you right to the interview. Or you can come over to the X22Report.com or NewSentinel.com sites. Scroll down a little bit, look over to your right-hand side. You can play the interview right on the sites. Or go to Steemit, that is steemit.com/@X22Report, and you can play the interview right on Steemit. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, we've been talking about how Trump, Xi Jinping, Putin, they're working together to get rid of the central bank. And we can see already that the entire plan is in motion. Now, we've been talking about real estate, GDP, unemployment, and we look at numbers and we say, oh, look, things aren't going well. Look in the real estate market. We can see prices are coming down. Traffic is drying up in certain areas. And we always look at numbers. But now, when we look at companies that actually handle the mortgage applications like Wells Fargo, remember, Wells Fargo's mortgage department, that was their bread and butter for their entire business. And yes, I know they've been in a lot of trouble with, client information and things like that. But when we look at Wells Fargo right now, they reported the worst set of mortgage numbers since the financial crisis, with both mortgage applications and mortgage originations. They are both tumbling to levels not seen in a decade. And if you go back in time, you can see how their entire mortgage department, how the applications, the mortgage originations, how they've been declining since 2013. Now, this just didn't happen overnight because they got into trouble, in 2016 or whatever the date was, and all of a sudden, they're trying to get their image back. This has been ongoing since that period of time, and it's getting worse and worse as time goes on. Now, Wells Fargo, because of this, they're going to be cutting 638 mortgage employees, and they're saying it's because of the crippling slowdown in their mortgage business. And once again, we saw this back in 2007, going into 2008, and of course, when the housing market really hit, you saw a lot of individuals being laid off in the mortgage arena. We're seeing the same thing right now. So the entire system is breaking down, and every time we look at something else, we can see that it's hitting something else and confirming to us that yes, it is breaking down. Now, we know that Trump, Putin, Xi Jinping, they're working together to bring down this central bank system. And of course, Trump has made some announcements saying that, he doesn't believe that the Fed should be raising rates at this point in time. He thought that Powell was going to be the easy money type of Fed chairman like we used to have. He was very upset about this. Why would he be raising interest rates during a period of time when the debt is coming due, when the economy is doing so well? What would be the point of all this? And we know that when the Fed raises rates, the whole thing starts to break down because it's based on an illusion. And I think a lot of people don't understand what is happening here. The entire system, going all the way back to 2008, since that crash, and before that, but it really accelerated during that period of time, they created this gigantic illusion by manipulating all the numbers. And the numbers have been manipulated before that, but they really took it into overdrive during this period of time because they realized there was no way they were going to explain the economy away unless they manipulated the numbers. And since they manipulated the numbers, they created this gigantic illusion in many different sectors of the economy. And a lot of it doesn't even make sense, because you're seeing retail breakdown, you're seeing manufacturing slow. We know the unemployment numbers are completely fake, phony, and false. But what's very interesting about this is what Trump said, that he thought Jerome Powell was going to create more currency. And he continually calls out Powell, saying he doesn't think it's a good time to raise interest rates, and it's not a good time because debt is coming due. And I believe what is happening here is that he's using the strategy to make everyone believe that he's against Powell in what he's doing. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it and I see the strategy that Trump uses and the way Q reports on what is going on here, Powell and Trump might be working together in all of this. Because Powell says he's going to continue with raising the rates. And what Trump does with this strategy is to make the corporate media come out and say, we need to keep this individual. You can't say anything about the Fed. How dare you mention the Fed at all, actually, in a negative way. And he's calling out Powell, just like he's calling out Sessions, making everyone think the opposite. And Powell is going to raise interest rates. He's not going to be this easy money, even though they're still printing, this easy money type of Fed. He's going to do things a little differently. And what's very interesting about this is that Fed Chair Powell said higher interest rates are making the economy healthier by staving off the risks of overheating and asset bubbles. Now, we both know that Trump knows that there's tons of asset bubbles. He said it before he was president. He knows that the stock market's in a bubble. He knows the housing market's in a bubble. Powell also stressed further increases in base borrowing costs would continue as long as economic growth keeps its momentum. He said the economy is strong. Inflation is around 2%. Most people who want a job are finding one. If the strong growth in income and jobs continue, further gradual increases in the target range for the federal funds rate will likely be appropriate. Powell stressed that the central bank's policy approach remains data dependent, and every decision to raise rates or leave them unchanged comes after a fresh batch of inflation and employment data. The Fed chair stressed this allows them to minimize the risk of policy mistakes that could actually hurt GDP growth. Now, we know that they recalculated GDP. They manipulated it to make you think that GDP is a lot higher than it is. We know that unemployment numbers are manipulated. And by these statements, it's telling us that he's working hand in hand with Trump to show that the economy's doing well and they're going to raise interest rates. And I believe this is the narrative they're going to be setting up here. This is the push to take down the central bank, because they both know that this is going to bring down the central bank system. And Trump is out there, and he was asked if he believed in the Fed's independence. Well, he kind of sidetracked the whole entire question. Trump said, I believe in the Fed doing what's good for the country. He really didn't answer the question, which tells you he doesn't believe in the Fed's independence. And of course, if he came out and said, no, I don't believe in the Fed's independence, well, this would have been a huge mistake because the mainstream media would have been all over this. Instead, he sidetracked it saying, I believe in the Fed doing what's good for the country. Now, of course, he knows the Fed's not doing what's good for the country. He knows the Fed is a private corporation. And then they asked him a question about Powell. Are you happy with Powell? And Trump said the following, I am happy with my choice, and I'll let you know in 7 years. So what that tells us is that the entire system that we know today is going to be brought down within this period of time. Within this period of time of Trump being president, and he's also pushing it out that he's going to be president the next term, because both terms add them together, 4 plus 4 is 8. That'd be 8 years. In 7 years, he's saying that we will find out if this whole thing worked. And I do believe at this point that Powell might be working with Trump, Putin, Xi Jinping to bring this entire system down. And Russia is out there, and we know more sanctions were placed on certain corporations. We see that the Russian foreign minister, deputy foreign minister, Sergei Rybakov, said that since these sanctions were put into place, thank God all of this is happening, Russia is going to be moving away from the dollar. It's time to ditch the dollar. Now, what's very interesting about all of this that we're watching right now is that Trump never admits that the Fed is independent. He says that he's happy with his choice. He'll know 7 years from now. And he also realizes that all the countries around the world, like Russia, China, and the rest, are going to have to move away from the dollar, because if they're holding the dollar, it's going to bring them down too. And we know from Russia, where they said many countries should use their national currencies, they shouldn't be using the dollar. And I think what's happening at this point is all these countries are being pushed away from the dollar on purpose to set up this reset of the system. Now, it doesn't mean that this reset's going to happen in one fell swoop. This is going to go on for a period of time. How long it's going to last, we don't know. And we're going to see certain individuals fight against this. So this is not going to be an open and shut type of case where, you snap your finger, the whole thing comes down, we bring it up in 3 months, everything looks great. Look what's happening with the deep state. Look what's been happening with bringing people to justice. It doesn't happen with the snap of a finger, because these individuals just don't give up. The central bank is not just going to give up. It's going to be a battle to the end. So we're going to see many attempts to do this. And it's going to be very rough on people. It's going to be very rough on people around the world, because we need to get out of this system and move into a brand new system. And this is no easy task. But we can see that this is all being set up right now. It's been set up for quite a while, actually, to move to a central banking system. Now they're rotating and making it so they can trade using their national currencies instead of using the dollar. Because when this hits, it's going to bring the entire world to a screeching halt for a period of time. And then everything has to be rebooted to start up again. And many countries are going to be limping along until all this is said and done. So we can see right now that they're prepping everything, and this is going to take a long period of time. So be prepared. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.